everybody? It is 12 noon. It is Thursday. That means it's time for the Greenhouse Effect. I am your host, Hayden Greene, and I am happy to be back with you. It seems like it's been forever and a day. So we took Thanksgiving off because, that was a Thursday too. It's always a Thursday. And then the Thursday before that, we had a little bit of a snafu where only the people who were in the group could see the broadcast. So I feel like I haven't talked to you guys in about 3 weeks or so. So welcome back. And the greenhouse effect is, as you know, it's just we just go through a whole lot of stuff and everything that's happening in the day to day. And I got a whole bunch of stuff to talk to you guys about. And hopefully we have a bunch of people who will talk back to me this time. A couple of weeks ago, we did this and nobody signed on, so it's like this phantom program that just happened, and I don't know if anybody actually heard it, but it's good to see you all. Yeah, at the comment section is always open, and I'm looking forward to having a good old conversation. But let's get to it. So, um, we have not talked in a while, and so I know that it's old news because right now today is December 3rd. We're already in December. The year is almost over, just like that. Like I literally remember vaguely sort of kind of having saying New Year, Happy New Year's 12 months ago or 11 months ago, right? It's kind of foggy, right? But like it's December already. Like we felt like we've gone through 4 years in 2020. But a couple of weeks ago, um, Rudy Giuliani had a press conference. And again, I know this is old news, right? Had a press conference and dude's evil was seeping out of his head. Yes, I know it looked like a hair dye, but it like it had to be that's just like pure evil just seeping out of the side of his head. This was probably the most comedic and sad press conference that I have ever seen. Why is it sad? Well, it was so funny. It was funny because he was just rambling on about all different kinds of different things and purporting all things like dead people were voting and all kinds of crazy conspiracy theories. And the reason that it was funny, if it wasn't so sad, is that this is the man who is the legal advisor to the president of the United States. I You can't. So if I had pitched 2020 to you, you as a producer of a film or of a book or even as a short story or even a podcast, you'd have looked at me and gone, "That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to believe that happened." And yet it has. And yet it has. Hey, Jen. Jen is on. I am happy to be your photography guru. Woo! Um, But yeah, 2020 has just been crazy. So I kind of almost feel sad for Rudy Giuliani. This is a man that used to be America's mayor, not New York, because in New York, if you were black or brown, you didn't really care for too much for Rudy Giuliani because he was always been a jerk. It's kind of like the same way that we always knew that Trump was an a-hole, and the rest of the country is just now finding out. So we've always known Rudy Giuliani to be a little bit of a jerk, but even with that, he was America's mayor, right? He was the mayor that cleaned up New York City and got rid of the seedy Times Square and made Times Square to what it is now, where it's a tourist trap and people can come in and it's a place that New Yorkers avoid because no self-respecting New Yorker will ever walk through Times Square on purpose, unless you're crazy like me and you like taking pictures of Times Square. I'm a photographer. So anyway, so to go from that person, the person who was so revered in the national spotlight, to the crazy Uncle Rudy that people are seeing right now with hair dye dripping down your side, purporting all kinds of conspiracy theories that are wild, getting their court cases thrown out by the judges that they appointed. That's the greatest part. The greatest part about all of this is that all of these court cases that they've been pushing have been seen by some of the judges that they've appointed, and those judges have been like, this is ridiculous. And it's true, because judges don't want to side with any of these court cases, because at any point in time you say, all right, yes, I think that this is a valid case and I will hear the case. Just even saying that, the bar association is going to be like, yeah, just send me your paperwork. You clearly don't know what it means to be a judge. And so people are weighing that against Trump and Rudy Giuliani and all these people. They're only for now. They're going to go away at some point in time, right? And the judges want to know that they still have a seat, and more importantly, the respect of their peers when all of this Travis Shamakary that is happening goes away, right? Dunn says Rudy was a racist and hated in New York before 9/11. Yes, he was. And for those of you who are not from New York City, again, you have a rose-colored idea of who Rudy Giuliani is. Rudy Giuliani and Ray Kelly are two people who black people in New York City absolutely hate. Primarily because there are people who are still in jail for the laws and the enforcement of laws that the both of those were responsible for, right? The cleaning up of New York City was systematically trying to remove black and brown people from public areas so that it became more glossy and they could sell it to other people. Now, what's his name came along and completely decimated the middle class. So now New York City is a place where only rich people can live. But like, you're either poor or you're rich in New York City. But the start of that, like the quality of life laws and the enforcement of the quality of life laws, were all under Rudy Giuliani's rule and Ray Kelly. And those people were putting people in jail for people peeing on the wall, for minor infractions of the drug law. So like, these are people who have systematically put things in effect to be biased against people of color. Anyway, so it gave me great joy to have the rest of the world see what a crackpot Rudy Giuliani was in this. I thought that it couldn't go worse than them setting up at the Four Seasons, the Four Seasons parking lot, thinking that it was the hotel. I thought it couldn't get worse than that, and I was wrong. And I'm a big man, and so I am always willing to admit when I am wrong, and I was wrong. Says here, yes, stop and frisk, like, you name it. If you look back on the 80s and 90s of New York City and you start to label all of the things that are really bad with the city, Rudy Giuliani and Ray Kelly were pretty much at the head of all of those things. So like, this is not even a personal opinion. This is fact. Go look it up. All right. So speaking of Rudy Giuliani's boss, I had a whole different direction that I was going with today. And then last night, he decides to go on a 45-minute rant about how all of the different elections in all these different states are all corrupted. Even though every single, and when I tell you every single, I mean every single governor, every single AG, even William Barr, his lapdog, even William Barr came out and said that there was no corruption. The elections were as secure as they possibly could be. I was watching CNN or 60 Minutes or one of these programs, and the guy that he put in charge to make sure that the elections didn't have any fraud in them, he validated the elections and said that this is the most secure election that they have ever been. And he fired that guy for saying that, by the way. And still he comes out and says that there was so much fraud. He even said, "Oh my God, this is and this is the place where it's like, did you ever take a civics class? Did you ever understand? Do you understand what was like? What were you doing for the 4 years that you were in the presidency that you completely missed this?" And he said, "We used to have an election day. Now we have election days," as if to say, early voting is some sort of radical thing that got pushed under his nose, and he didn't know what was happening. Like, what what where have you been? Like, how do you not know? Oh, well, let me not rephrase. Let me rephrase that. I know he knows. How do you purport that election days is some sort of a conspiracy theory when state after state voted on this? People were aware of it, and all of these things are well documented that there were going to be places that had early voting plus mail-in voting, which has been a thing since in perpetuity, right? And I don't understand. Georgia counted their votes twice. Twice. One on election day, and again, they recounted before they certified. They're counting them again. Counting them again. And this is where the Republican people are starting to get nervous, because Republicans are like, stop, because you're going to end up losing us races, right? So a lot of Republicans, and so I was talking to, I was talking to Nikita. Nikita, if Nay's on the line, what up, Nay? I was talking to Nikita, and she was telling me, we was talking, it's like, Republicans are big mad, and Democrats as well, are big mad because most people voted Democrat. The majority of people in this country voted Democrat on the top of the ticket and on the top of the ballot, but then voted Republican in different places at the bottom of the ballot, right? So you have a lot of these people who were in places that were strongholds, well, not strongholds, but like places that the Democrats won, and the Rumper and his legion are talking about having recounts, right? And they're saying like, hey, listen, you might want to stop that, because you recount these votes and we may end up in another runoff. They're already having a runoff in Georgia, and everybody who's in that election is running around scared, and they're trying to tell him to stop, because it's souring the people who are going to have to go back and vote again in January for the runoff in Georgia. And this is the problem. The Attorney General from Georgia got on the mic, and this is the thing that's wild. Got on the mic at a political campaign wearing a MAGA hat. First of all, you're the Attorney General, sir. You're supposed to be the exemplification of judicious and fair, but you get up on the mic and tell people, why would you vote again? Why would you put any kind of confidence in a fraudulent voter situation, a fraudulent voter system that discredited you in this election? Why would you vote again in January? And Republicans are like, yo, we still got races that we need to win. What is wrong with you? And so everybody is falling in line with all of the craziness that's coming out of the White House. And I said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. Trump has PP tapes on everybody. Everybody's talking about the Trump PP tape. I'm believing that Trump has PP tapes on everybody, because the way that these politicians are falling in line right after, they're like, yeah, nope, there was no, because the AG from Georgia certified the election. And we're like, there was nothing, right? There was no inconsistencies. Everything was done on the up and up. And the AG from Florida certified, and now he's out here talking about, why would you vote again, right? Like, they discredited your vote. What happened? Oh, it was all good just a week ago, as the song says, right? Anyway, says if elections were fair, there would not be any of these problems. I don't know what you mean, but because they were fair, I'm confused. Oh, you mean 4 years ago? Got it. All right. So all of this stuff is going on, and again, I'm going to come back to something that I say over and over again, and I'm tired of having to say it, but I have to like keep us vigilant about certain things. If we are, if we are being honest, Trump is not talking to your average elector, right? He's not talking to the person who just goes into the booth. He's talking to a very specific group of people who probably didn't go to the polls because he thought they thought it was rigged anywhere and are sitting with a barn full of ammunition just waiting for the word go, right? And so we're not out of the woods yet. I heard somewhere last week that he will agree to leave the White House if the Electoral College comes back and says that he lost the election. And Electoral College meets next week. What is this? The third? Yes. Electoral College meets next week. And so it's very, very dangerous when he's putting out this rhetoric, right? That the election was rigged, and he has a 45-minute and a multi-page a multi-page document that simply says that they were robbed, right? And there are people who, that's a dog whistle for a lot of people who are listening to say, all right, it's on. Anarchy is happening because the government, they've already taken over the government. The deep state has already taken over the government. Says it should be a 3-day national holiday. The goal should be for everyone to vote. Electoral college needs to go. Absolutely. These are all things that we talk about multiple times. But the states, there are a number of states, and I've talked about this. There are a number of states who are already in an agreement about the Electoral College, trying to get rid of it. Getting rid of the Electoral College is a very lengthy process, and as I mentioned before, one of the things that is happening now is that there are states who are entered into an agreement that they will pledge their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. So it will eliminate the need for an electoral college. And what does that mean? So as long as more than two, as long as as many states that add up to more than 270 electoral votes sign this agreement, the electoral college will be null and void. Because what it means is that if you get the majority of the popular vote, then these states will just automatically give their electoral votes to this particular candidate. And if that happens, then the electoral college is null and void, and they can still have the pomp and circumstance. But if these states go into that agreement, that's one way of getting rid of the electoral college. But said is right. Election day or days or a couple of days need to be federal holidays. Early voting, solves some of the problem, but as we saw in New York City, early voting was just as many lines and just as long as when you had it on election day, right? So if we're talking about early voting and it taking hours in early voting, you may have to have a couple of different days that are federal holidays so that people can actually go vote, or you have agreement with labor unions and stuff like that you bake it into the contract that election days are a it's you could take a vacation day and it doesn't count against your vacation time, right? So those are the kind of things that need to happen in order for it's for a country that is really prides itself in the democratic process. Having less than 50% of the electorate actually go out and vote is abysmal. It's absolutely abysmal. People are dying in other countries just to get the right to vote, and here we have it in this country, and people don't use it, right? So, there got to be other places, other ways that we can encourage people to get out and vote. What up, Johnny? So Johnny got something that I sent to him in the mail. I sent out some ornaments in the mail, and actually that's a great segue. So I sent out a couple of ornaments in the mail to a couple of people who are on the Green Light Photography mailing list and stuff like that, and some fathers and Jack and Jill. It's just something to say thank you. It's a little ornament about that big, and on the back of it On the front of it, it has a Spotify wavelength, and it's a link to some Christmas music. And I sent two of them out somewhere. One set of Christmas music, and the other one was Caribbean Christmas music, or if you're from Trinidad, you know it as parang, right? Which is a throwback to when Trinidad and Tobago was a Spanish colony, and so there are remnants of Spanish-speaking descendants in Trinidad, and one of those remnants is the Christmas music. So there is a whole sector of Christmas music in Trinidad that's sung in Spanish, right? And so I sent that out, and one of my fraternity brothers got it, and immediately wrote back. And I'm not going to go into his message because it's private between him and I, but it was clear that that's what he needed in that moment. I thank you, Johnny, for bringing that up, because one of the things that I wanted to do was tell people that there are people who are out there who are struggling, who are having hard times, who are having this whole year has been hard, right? And so when you have the opportunity to be kind, do so. When you have the opportunity to spread some joy, do so. Even if you think that it's a small thing and nobody's really paying attention to it, go ahead and do it. You never know who you touch. You never know who you're going to bring joy to, who needs it in that specific moment. That little bit of joy in that specific moment. So as you are trying to find joy for yourself, make sure that you are passing on that joy to other people, and that you are giving people, and that you are giving the opportunity for other people to experience your joy as well. Because there are so many of us who are hurting out there, and doing it silently. And so sometimes all it takes is an ornament, or sometimes it might be something as simple as a phone call or an email, or a gift card or something, to make people know that there's somebody out there who thinks about them, who cares about them. The message that I got from my fraternity brother warmed my heart. It made my year, period. Like, when I think back on 2020, that text message, that message that I got from him will be my highlight. And so we have to take the time to spread joy. We have to take the time to get out there and tell people that we love them, get out there and tell people that they are important, get out there and tell people that there's a little piece of joy that is reserved just for them. And if you can be the agent of that, I guarantee you that it will be a twofold thing. You'll get as much as you receive, and you'll receive as much as you get. All right, what's going on in the chat? So Akila says that Orange Peel plans to return in 2020. I keep on hearing that, and I really don't believe it. I really think that a lot of this has nothing to do with him wanting to run again in 2024. A lot of this has to do with, he knows the minute that the new president takes the oath of office, that he is going to be in hell for Letitia James is waiting on him. For those of you who don't know who Letitia James is the New York City Attorney General. She is sitting there waiting for him, right? And so, we talked about all of the lawsuits and everything that he deferred because he was president. But as soon as that he's no longer president, that's going to be his ass. And a couple of us were talking about the fact that he's probably not going to go to jail. America doesn't want to see one of its former presidents actually in jail. Like, even Nixon got pardoned, right? Nobody wants to see him actually in jail. But they're going to make his life hell. And he's trying to avoid that as much as he possibly can. Let's see. Early voting would work better if more locations will open. Several precincts will consolidate fewer locations, causing longer lines. Yep, it wasn't perfect, right? Think about it. If I can use a phone app to transfer thousands of dollars, but I can't come up with a safe way to vote. Yes, we are sadly antiquated with our systems, and there are a lot of ways that we can make it better. But one of the things that I talked about in a meeting recently with my fraternity was that when we institute things, we have to make sure that it works for the entire chapter when in that conversation, but it has to work for the entire country, right? So if we are instituting a system that goes fully digital or mostly digital, what happened to the people who don't have access to those digital networks, right? Because if we're putting all that money into making it digital, we have to then, that means it's taking money away from other places. And if it's taking money, so it's not a one-to-one thing, right? So if I take away money for to make this thing digital, uh, and I make it accessible to a great deal of people, but I've taken away enough money that this place that had the old time way of doing it, whether it's paper ballot or machines, electronic machines, that's not enough money to keep that place open at all, right? And so everybody who was serviced by that now is disenfranchised. So it's not a one-to-one thing. So it's said, I hear what you're saying completely, but there needs to be more money pumped into it. And what this government and a lot of governments do is they don't ever pump more money into it. They pump the same amount of money into it, and so they'll say, if I'm spending more money on this, then this has to come down, and vice versa, right? And so we never want to get to a point where there's a group of people who are disenfranchised by the lack of funding for it. Uh, Vaughn says I ain't shit. Well, I mean, that goes without saying. What up, V? I will take credit for intro Hayden to the Spotify scan code. You're welcome. Absolutely. And so it brings me to my next point. So this idea I had never ever heard of. And Victoria Fleary, who is a absolute goddess when it comes to technology and ideas and all things crafty. Like, you need something, go to Victoria Fleary. Like websites, like logo design, and oh my God, I wish to be as talented as Victoria one day. She's amazing. So we were sitting down and was talking about how I get my photography and my art into different places, and she put me on to how certain people were doing these Spotify plaques, right? And I was like, all right, that sounds like a good idea, but it feels like there's something else, somewhere else that I can utilize that, and which is how I ended up coming up with the ornaments. But I say all of this to say, Victoria is my person. Victoria is my wall. Victoria is I'll bounce something off of her, and she will always come back with something that gives me the idea that I needed to move forward. And I have a couple of people who are like that. And when you are, especially for creatives, when you are in your own head, it's hard to try to figure out exactly where the right place for your ideas are, and sometimes you need somebody who's going to like drill that information down and make it granular and be able to make it actionable. And that's the difference between, and that's the link between being a creative and being able to utilize your craft for either monetary reasons or for other reasons, right? Because it's like yelling into the wind. If you are a great artist but nobody ever sees it, then it's one of those Vivian Mayer things, like people find it out long after you're dead. But if you want people to see your stuff while you are actually alive, you need to be able to make that leap, right? Make the leap between how you get it into the hands and in the eyes, or just for other people to experience it. And so, but ideas are like that. When you come up with an idea, you don't always have a way to make that idea actionable, right? And that's a really important word, actionable. How do people take action on it, right? And so one of the things that I always advise people is that you need to have a team of people who are going to be able to lift you up, who are also going to be able to say, that's an absolutely horrible idea. And not the people like, yo, that's a bad idea. What time should I be ready? Not those people, right? You need people who are going to be like, that's a bad idea. You need to go back to the drawing board with it. Because there are a lot of ideas that you kind of wish somebody had stopped them somewhere along the line and said, That's a bad idea. You should not move forward with it, right? And I see y'all bashing me in the comments. I don't think I don't see it. It's all good. I love y'all anyway. Uh, but you always need that team. And whether your team is people who are your mentors, people who are older than you and have seen a lot of different things, people who are your contemporaries, who are going through the same thing that you're going through and have similar mindsets, and therefore but enough of a divergence from your point of view that they can give you a different way of looking at things, or some people who are actually less experienced than you, and less experience doesn't always mean younger, but yes, less experienced than you, who can say, yeah, that's an antiquated way of looking at things. You should start looking at it on this end of the spectrum, right? And so you always need that team. You always need a bunch of people who can build you up. And I have that in my artistic world, like I just mentioned Victoria, but I also have that with my professional world as well, like, job searches or job innovation. Like I belong to a group of people called the Wolf Pack, and Johnny's on here right now, and every now and again you'll see Mike hop on. And but my Wolf Pack are people who constantly push me, right? Constantly say, you need to be the director of this. You need to be on the board of trustees for this. You need to go ahead and apply for this. You need to. So, like, and there's always people around, and we pull and push each other, right? So I'm get to a point where it's like, no, you come along with me. I was like, or I'm not going to go for that. You go ahead and do that. And that's what you need. You need a group of people who are always going to inspire you or push you or get you people to line up your thoughts in order to get you to the place that you need to be. And so Victoria is, like I said, my person on the art side. The Wolfpack is my people on the work side. And then I have a group of people who are there for like my family matters. It's like, what does it really mean to be a dad? Like, am I doing this all correctly? Or like, what does it mean to be a good husband? Am I being the best person that I can to my wife? Right. So in anything that we are doing, we need a group of people we can bounce things off. Like, as humans, we are social people. Even if you don't like a lot of people, you need a couple of people to bounce things off of. Because if we're talking about just being in our own heads, trust me, you do not want to rely on your own analysis of your own thoughts. That's never going to be a good place for you. Always try to find somebody who you can pass that, who you can push those thoughts onto, and it will come back filtered out in a way that makes sense for you, and you can find those actionable items. All right. People who are simply straight with you. Yep. And that's another thing, right? So the last thing you need is yes men in your people. Yes men, yes women. And that's the problem that we have with the current president. All he has around him are yes people. People who will just simply only tell him, which is why his head is exploding right now, because there are people who are telling him no. Governors are telling him no. AGs are telling him no. All of these different people are telling him no, and he's like, wait a minute. I think I paid all of you off in order to tell me yes. And it's like, and as a matter of fact, I've got something in my pocket that will make you all fall in line. Right? So that's why he's having all of these heart attacks. All he surrounds himself with yes people. You need people who will be straight with you, who will tell you yes when it's time to be, when the answer actually is yes, but will absolutely say, nah, son, you don't need to be doing that. And the more people you have in your life who will be straight with you, the more growth you will have, right? Because you will be able to ascertain whether your ideas are great, whether it is on where to vacation this year, or whether to go into business, or what stocks to buy. As long as you have people who are straight with you, you will always be able to have growth in your life, because you can ascertain whether decisions are being made with a clear head or you're being muddled by different things. And knowing for yourself, I need to ask about this, right? A couple of days ago, my daughter wanted to go hang out with a new friend. She's in middle school now, and so there's this new person that she wants to go hang out with. And I haven't met their parents, and I haven't met anything. I don't know anything about this kid, right? So I'm like, well, who's this kid, right? Like, we're in the middle of a corona. Why are you trying to hang out? And so I immediately went to the no, right? Because I'm a good dad, so my job is to say no. uh, yeah, I'm that dad. Hey, dad, no. But I haven't even. No, the answer is no. I don't have the bandwidth for anything that you're asking me, and we ain't going nowhere. So the answer is no, right? So anyway, so I automatically said like I don't think that this is a good idea. But again, the idea is having people who are straight with you. And what I did was I took the idea to my wife and I said, hey, listen, um, go ask your mother, right? Have her look at it with unadulterated eyes and see if she comes up with the same answers that I did, because I might be just like I don't understand preteen girls and I don't get middle school, and maybe it's something that I should be looking at in a different way. And so I had the presence of mind to be like, I need a second opinion about this. And so I sent it to the wife, and the wife was like, yeah, nah, no. Right? And so I was validated in what my decision was. But again, even though I would have came to the same decision, it makes a lot more sense to be able to bounce things off of people so that you have a straight shooter and helps you to understand how your thought process is going. Okay, so 45 may not actually run in 24. However, he continues to raise con his supporters to get them as much money as he can from it. Yeah, he's in debt. Running an election ain't cheap. So again, my wife we were discussing about it, like he's only doing all of this so he can continue to raise funds. And as long as he keeps this thing going, he can raise funds and be able to pay off this stuff didn't pay for itself, and somebody's got to pay all of these people for these rallies and all the rest of stuff. So, and especially these lawsuits, that recount in Georgia, the third recount in Georgia, Georgia's not paying for that. The Trump administration has to pay for that, right? Vaughn also says, let's see, I raised a point about legal fund a few weeks back, and hearing Anthony Scaramucci, he's also playing the long con. This is also pretty true. P.S. I'm actually mad at Scaramucci because he got fired way too fast. There were not nearly enough opportunities for the Scaramouche, do you see a fandango? Like, there were not enough Bohemian Rhapsody jokes while Scaramucci was in office. Like, he was there for like a week. Victoria, you can focus energy into things that are actually real versus perceived real. Right. When you have somebody who you can bounce your thoughts off of. Anyway, so I am a real big advocate of having a team and finding those people that you can bounce your thoughts off of. And so, yes, I totally get that. Okay. So the other piece that I wanted to talk about is we are getting vaccines starting to be a reality, right? And so everybody is, so I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people are very afraid of the vaccine, right? So it normally takes years to get a vaccine, and we are seeing vaccines being approved or getting FDA approval really quickly in the course of 8 months, right? The UK just approved vaccinations to be distributed to healthcare workers and stuff like that yesterday. So the UK is ahead of us. They're already putting out vaccines, and so it is. I think a real danger, right? We talked about this a couple of months ago, where what was it? Two HBCU colleges had sent out a letter encouraging their students to participate in the trials. And I said this on the air, and I'll say it again. I don't know about that, right? Because black people are still skeptical from the Tuskegee experiments, and those are very. And people are like, oh, well, there are regulations that prevent that, and there were regulations back then in the era of the Tuskegee experiment, right? So black people are going to be leery, which puts us at another disadvantage. Why? Because if you are testing the virus on people who are not black and then administering it to black people, the the results may be different. And well, humans are humans. No, that's not true, right? There is there's lots of documentation about the fact that there are a number of drugs that were only tested on men, and then when they administered them to women, it acted completely different. We're talking about cancer treatments, right? So not stuff that was gender specific. They were like, oh, okay, well, this man has cancer. We tested this drug on him. It worked well. Let's use it on women. And they found that women's bodies were different than men's bodies. Shocker, right? But this also applies to people with different genetic codes. So if you are of African descent, your genetic code is different than somebody who is of European descent, who is of Asian descent, of South American descent. Like all of these different genealogical markers that exist in our bodies because of where our peoples came from are real, and they make different drugs act differently. And so by not having black people in the study means that there is a risk that the drugs or whatever vaccine that are being developed, there's a risk that we will have an adverse reaction to them, right? And that's a real thing. What am I saying? Nothing. I'm not telling people not to get the vaccine. That's the last thing that I'm going to say. I am skeptical about it, and I have a right to be, because a vaccine that normally takes decades got processed in 8 months. So I'm skeptical about it. That's my right. I will have to make decisions about whether or not I vaccinate myself and my family when that time comes, because that's just because I have children in schools. I work in a school, and so we're going to end up having to make decisions based on what the state says. Like, so if the state says in order to come back to school you have to get vaccinated, kind of like what we do for MMR and smallpox and all the rest of that stuff, if we want them in the physical school, then that's what we have to do. And then we either have to do that or make a decision about homeschooling them. And if you've met my little girl, ain't nobody trying to homeschool her. All right. So like, I just, and people are talking about things like I Am Legend, right? Like people, the widespread, everybody gets the vaccine, and all of a sudden everybody starts to go crazy, and you have a situation where it's a zombie apocalypse. I'm pretty sure that that's not what's going to happen, but I'm also pretty sure that that's not a real possibility too, right? So I got no answers to any of this. I understand the skepticism. I also understand why the vaccine needs to be administered, and we need to achieve herd immunity somewhere along the line. Doc is on the line. Closing note on vaccine: wait a little while before getting one. Great show. Get back to my patients. I love that Doc jumps in because he's, as his name says, an actual doctor, and sometimes I say stuff and I'm just like, I think this is right, and then Doc will validate that stuff. So yeah, cool. So the problem with the vaccine is that there's a lot of skepticism about it. The other problem about the vaccine is there is this weird thing that is happening with human nature, right? Humans are now, and I say humans because I mean everybody, humans are now hearing that the vaccine is on the horizon, which means that at any moment we will have a vaccination for this thing that has ravaged our lives for the last 10 months, right? Somewhere in their brain, they've been like, oh, okay, COVID's over. It's done. We can go back to our lives. I'm good. Dude, nobody said there was a cure, right? Nobody said that there was a cure, number one. Number two, even if the vaccine gets approved tomorrow, the general public, i.e., not people who are not essential workers, people who are not caretakers and part of hospital and what do you call it, nursing homes and stuff like that. Those people are not getting the vaccine. People are not getting the vaccine until months later. months later, right? And so when we start to think about when this actually will start to take effect or have an effect on the general public, we're not talking about until we're talking about like March, April, maybe even May before you even have an option of taking a vaccine. So it has so don't think so. But people hear the vaccine, it's like, oh my God, we've conquered the disease. It's over. Yeah, no. So again, like I said, number one, it's not a cure. So what do I mean by it's not a cure? There are two things that we have to think about when it comes to COVID. Number one is preventative. That's the vaccine. And being able to say, I will prevent myself from actually getting this actual disease. And so if we're doing a corollary between the COVID and the flu, so when you take a flu vaccine, it stops you from actually getting the flu. Or when you get the flu, the symptoms might be less than if you didn't have the vaccine. So that's the preventative piece. The other piece that needs to also happen is proper treatment and proper treatment if you actually get the disease. So if you catch the flu, there are things like Theraflu and other therapies that can be used to treat it so that you don't die, right? Currently, with the coronavirus, there are not enough treatments for the second part, the latter, right? So when you get, if you can prevent it, face masks, social distancing, all the rest of it, great. But if you get it, there's a high chance that you will have a lot of negative effects. So, and which one of them could be death, right? And so two things have to happen for us to feel more secure about getting back into the world and being into close contact with people. One, a vaccine, so you create herd immunity. Two, a proper treatment regimen. And so now they're releasing the drugs that they gave to Trump when he got it, and they're like, oh, okay, well, this is another treatment option. They also need to release all the other drugs that they gave to him in addition to the Revenazole or whatever that thing is, right? Because it wasn't just one. He was on a wide range of treatments. So the whole point is that we have to have both of those things. Right? And the latter one, the treatment piece, is a piece where I think that people are getting mixed up with the vaccine piece. Because if you go out today and contract the coronavirus, that vaccine is not going to help you, right? You needed somebody on the treatment side to have a breakthrough. And so we're starting to see those. We're not getting as much press about it, but we're starting to see those as well. But having a vaccine doesn't mean that you can throw caution to the wind. Regeneron, right? And so people are throwing caution to the wind because they hear about a vaccine. I'm like, y'all don't. This is why all of this is going to fall down, because they get one piece of information and don't properly analyze that piece of information, and then have actions that are based on the improper analysis of that information. And this is why it's all going to fall apart. And it's all scary, right? And so I say all of this to say is that we need to be extra vigilant over the next couple of weeks, because we will continue to get more and more information about how the vaccine is more and more effective. And different vaccines are going to be coming out. Funny enough, the vaccines that are the best and are being fast-tracked are the ones that are not in Operation Warp Speed. The ones in Warp Speed are, I think there are like 4 right now that are in contention. 2 of them are like already out and are ready to be approved. The ones that are in Warp Speed are still lagging behind them a little bit. This thing was rushed. Big Pharma is out to make money, not wellness. We do not know the long-term effects of either. Watch Utopia on Amazon Prime. I know it's just a show, but it's not far-fetched. Yeah, I'm not watching any dystopia things right now. I only got about a little bit of bandwidth. And you try to scare me even more, said. I'm not watching Utopia. But yes, it was rushed. And there's a reason that it was rushed, right? Like the whole world is shut down. And nobody's saying that it wasn't rushed. But the whole point about it is that there has to be some, now that a lot of people are saying, okay, this fills all of the checks all the boxes that it needs to check in order to give it to humans. You see, the problem is that being able to get all of the human subjects and watch all of the long-term effects takes a very long time. And so will they have long-term effects? Nobody knows, right? And so that's the problem, right? And again, I'm not telling people don't take the vaccine, but just understand that there's real reason for skepticism, and I don't blame anybody who wants to take the vaccine, but anybody who doesn't want to take the vaccine, I'm not going to shun them either, because it's scary. It's scary. Again, should have taken decades to develop something like that, and it took months. Now, did it take months because they put all of the best minds on this? Yes, right? If one or two people were working on this and other people were working on other things, would we have gotten it in that regular timeline? Probably the answer is yes again. My question is this. Now that we have found a vaccine for the coronavirus, can we put all the best minds on this and find a cure for cancer? I think that if we did, we could. There is a black woman who just had a breakthrough with cancer treatment and cancer cure. And I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think that she stops whatever she's doing, stops the regeneration of the cancerous cells. So like if the best minds came together and got a virus, a vaccine in 8 months, what would they produce if the best minds came together and looked at cancer? I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm getting ready to get out of here. The last piece of thing that I want to talk about is The Mandalorian. For those of you who are out there and listen to The Mandalorian, you can shut your ears off right now because this will be a spoiler alert. So the Baby Yoda's name was revealed on The Mandalorian, and the world is having like their whole heads are exploding. It was like, I ain't gonna call him Grogu. I know him as Baby Yoda. I'm gonna keep on calling him Baby Yoda. Listen, like Eddie Murphy said in Coming to America, Mama named him Grogu. I'm gonna call him Grogu. I got tired of calling him Baby Yoda because it felt like it was disrespectful to Yoda. But at any rate, I just wanted to let everybody know, y'all go hard, the way I've seen it. Y'all go hard when it comes to fictional characters, and I absolutely am here for it. But I'm going to call Baby Yoda Grogu, right? That's the man's name. I'm going to call him that. All right? So, all right, good people. It has been a pleasure to see y'all. It's been a pleasure to talk with y'all again. And he is not Yoda. He's not. And I'm more than happy to call him Baby Grogu. All right? But anyway, y'all have a great weekend. I will see you all next week. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk with you again. We'll be here at our regular time slot, Thursdays at noon. This has been The Greenhouse Effect. My name is Hayden Greene, and I will see you next week. Stay safe, everyone.